Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Author Spotlight. It has been a minute since we have been coming to you on Fridays at noon to highlight authors, but I'm so tickled to say that we're back. And we are going to start off with a bang today as we talk with Lynette Bradshaw about a book that really, boy, it's going to speak to a lot of us. So let me tell you just a little bit about Lynette first, and then we're going to let her come on and say hello. Lynette is an international best-selling author. She's a transformational speaker and a coach. And she is very passionate about helping women embrace their stories. She helps them find their unique voice, choosing themselves and giving themselves permission to speak out and step into the woman they desire to be on purpose. Lynette's written 10 books, and her next adventure in writing is to write her first women's fiction book. And she also works with aspiring nonfiction authors in the self-publishing space. So Lynette, you and I have something in common then, both publishing, and I work also as a book writing coach. So I guess we're going to need to chat a little bit more about that at another time. But what would you like to add to what I read? What is one maybe fun thing that we wouldn't know about you from what I just talked about on your bio?
One thing I would like to share is I am in a place where I am rediscovering me. I'm rediscovering what I like to do for fun and letting go of things that I'm like, okay, I did that for a while. And I'm finding that that helps me to be more creative and help me to be find my uniqueness to be able to share with other people.
Oh my gosh, I love that, Lynette. And it sounds like you're just finding more and more ways to help women find who they really are because you're going through that journey yourself. So I think that's just very, very cool.
Thank you.
Um, as you know, because we chatted about this before, this book really speaks to my heart because, well, I mean, I know that men compare themselves to one another. You know,
Right.
it's a human trait. However, women take it to a whole different level, and
Absolutely.
it's toxic. And
Hmm.
it can keep us from not only being who we really are, but it can paralyze us and keep us from trying new things, branching out into new areas. So, I thank you for writing this book. I think it's going to be really a game changer for a lot of women. I'm very excited for it to come out. Um, so, how did you come to the realization that you had to write this book?
In all honesty, it was not my decision. Every book that I have written, God gives it to me. And it's usually at a point when I'm 2 to 3 steps ahead of what I'm writing about. I've gone through the healing process and I'm at a point where I can help someone else. But on this day, when he gave this book to me, I was having my own triggers of going down social media. I was comparing myself to other people that I admired. And he stopped me in my tracks. And what he said to me was, what I heard was, I'm not her. And so that stopped me immediately. And then I began to say, I am her. And then when I understood that, that's when he began to download this book into my heart and spirit. And I'm like, are you giving this book to me, someone who should have a degree in comparison? Why would you give this to me? I didn't feel qualified to write a book about comparison, but I knew that the way he was giving it to me and in the timing that he was giving it to me, that my life was going to be changed going through the process. And so I know that other women, if they are willing to accept the journey themselves, that their lives can be changed also.
That is so powerful. Not just that you were listening and obeying, which I love, but that you did have the fortitude, the core strength to write a book before you felt qualified to write it.
Right. That
That
was something.
really,
You.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about when I heard you say that, Ed Milet came to mind. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he is a very well known coach in the personal development field. And that's one thing that he always talks about. And that the person that you're most able to help is the one that's just a little bit behind you that you can reach back and give a hand to. So your book is going to resonate so deeply with women who are in the thick of this right now.
Right, absolutely. Because if God can, in a day, in a matter of hours, do what I thought was going to take forever, because at that point it was what, 56 years? That's all I knew was to compare. If he can do that for me in a matter of hours, he can do that for the next person in a shorter time span. Because I knew that I had an issue with jealousy, I had an issue with insecurities, but I didn't label it as comparison, because that's the thing about comparison. It shows up in different ways, what I call the little sneaky ways, in how we say that we can't have relationships with women. We grew up, many of us, hearing that you can't trust women, that, you know, we find ourselves being jealous of the next person that we believe has more than what we have, or people love them more than they love us. And when we take that time to really be able to be honest with ourselves, then God can change and heal that part of us that we've been struggling with for so many years, and begin to not only change how we see ourselves, but how we see other women.
Boy, that is really powerful. Um, and I love this. So I had taken some notes of parts of
Okay.
your book that really spoke to me. And the very first thing that I wrote down was when you said, the her in my vision was not always the same woman, but a
Yes.
collection of women throughout my life who brought about the same response from me. She was usually beautiful, strong, in charge, and had many people to support her and praise her. She represented who I wanted to be, but never seemed to be. And
Yes.
what really struck me hard with that was you would never live up to that because you had this compilation of her.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking the best from all these people that you admired, and
Mm-hmm.
we're never that, right? We're all good and bad and strong and weak, and we have all of the layers in between. So when we do that, when we're actually comparing ourselves to a compilation, which I think we all do, it's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a losing battle.
Right. Absolutely. I look back through this journey because, like I said, I wrote this book within a matter of hours, but the year or so that I've been bringing it forth has been challenging, because when you discover what's causing you to feel this way, then you have to be willing to give yourself permission to examine what is going on in my heart, what's causing me to see her as the measuring stick to determine my worth and my value. And many of us don't want to do that, because that requires us to be able to dig up some stuff on the inside of us. And when you realize that I don't have to measure myself by anyone, and I can begin to see my uniqueness, it should stir something in us, that I don't have to hold on to this image of perfection of someone else. I can see what I'm made of. I can see what God put in me. I can discover my uniqueness, my voice, and that requires courage. And nobody wants to rehash what they've gone through. Nobody wants to dig up that, because many of us have been in survival mode in order to be able to exist in the world when we've gone through so much. But I discovered through my journey, through my writing, that if we are courageous enough to do that, we can find something about ourselves we didn't even know was there. And when we focus only on us, not only are we going to be able to deal with those things, but we begin to see how beautiful we are inside and out. You know, what's our genius? What am I good at? What am I great at? If I focus on me, what's so special about me? But we have to give ourselves permission to be able to do that, to not trying to become the her over there, but the her in our mirror that God is showing us through this process.
And having gone through that now, this reflects back on what you said right at the beginning of our broadcast when you were sharing all of the new things that you're welcoming into your life, and you're realizing that it doesn't have to be the status quo. It doesn't have to be the way you've done it in the past. So it really is building on that day when you opened yourself up to what God was sharing with you.
Right. I found that I've been in multiple seasons of my life where everything has been dark. My clothes, my thoughts, my vision of myself, and through my journey, I've discovered I want color. I want color in my clothing. I want color in my laughter. I want color in my relationships. It opens you up to something so much brighter, because every time we compare ourselves, first of all, we dim our light. And as you said, we can never measure up to them. They may not like color, but by us focusing on them, we lose sight of that and begin to walk in this darkness in so many different areas of our life. And it becomes so heavy. But this journey is about releasing the heaviness, because you may not like this color, but you may like brighter colors, because your energy, your spirit begins to have more color to it as you discover, who is this woman looking back at me? Yes, she's gone through some things, but who is she? Despite that, going through that, how did it build her? So I love it being a season of self-awareness, a coming into the her that we are now, and loving her for who she is.
So, how much of embracing the color of your life, literally in how you do your makeup, how the clothes that you wear, how much of that directly correlates to your now willingness to be seen?
It makes me feel bold. The colors of darkness just make you want to hide. You know,
Exactly.
you feel invisible to the world because you feel invisible to yourself. When I go and look for something, I want it to have color to it. I no longer look for the browns, the grays. I may wear them, but it's not my first choice. And I just feel like, because God has and is doing a healing in me, and I'm allowing that process, then my eyes are open. I see myself differently, and the person that I am today doesn't want to walk around in darkness in any aspect of her life.
Yeah. So it's been just a complete transformation.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I have to say that I love it. I just yesterday, I felt so beautiful. I and just thinking, there's days when I look in that same mirror and I don't feel as beautiful. And it's not so much as the outward, but I felt beautiful. I felt strong. I felt courageous. And no one else had to agree with it. But when we show up in that for ourselves, it draws people to us. And they may not be able to put their finger on it. Even my daughter looked at me. She hadn't seen me in a couple days, and she said, I kept looking at you trying to figure out what was different about you. She said, did you lose weight? I said, yes, I lost weight. But inside, I was filled with joy, because I'm like, it's so much more that I've lost than weight. And that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So when we can mirror those things to other people, other women, other girls, because I do believe that this can help our daughters too, then it gives them that permission to discover something about themselves. I want to see something different in myself.
Absolutely. I want to read something that from your book that's so profound. It starts out, it's really easy to look at others and believe they are the blueprint you need in order to be loved, valued, seen, or supported. I lived this life up until my 50s in one way or another, and it came a day when God said, enough is enough. He said to
Mhm.
my heart, oh, see yourself the way I see you. And I love that you listened when God told you enough is enough. And I would imagine there are people out there right now that are listening and thinking, it's great, that touches me, but how do I
Mhm.
stop this habit? How do I learn see myself as God sees me?
When he spoke that to me, I had a decision. And I did. I said, God, I don't know how to do that. I don't know
Hmm.
how to see myself differently than I always has have. But what we forget sometimes is that when we talk to God, when we pray, just because we don't see things changing around us, things are changing. And as he shows us something different about ourselves and shows us another way, how we choose to go through that process instead of backing up from it or being resistant. And even though the process is not easy, if we really want to see that change, we must know that there's some work that we have to do. He will show us along the way, this is how I see you. This is what I see in you. Look into me. You will see what's in you. Is reading his word, is hearing his voice, and doing what he tells us to do, even when it feels uncomfortable or when we don't feel that we're worthy of it.
It's taking your faith walk to a whole different level, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the things I really like about your book is that it's like a combination of your personal story, encouragement, a guide, and journaling all in
Mhm.
one. And what
Mhm.
made you decide to write it just like that?
When I initially wrote it, it didn't have any of that in there. So as I would, when God would show me something else for myself, this book has been edited a couple of times and added to, because again, the process, I've been going through the process. So when he took me back to another section to write the introduction, to show me how to show instead of tell what I was experiencing, and then go back and take the women on a journey. Mine was an internal journal, journaling myself. But when he asked me something or showed me something, then I would ask myself this question. So I want them to not just be able to read it, but I want them to stop and do the exercises, because when we do the work, that's the work, answering those hard questions, then we can begin to have that same process, that same journey. I didn't want them to have to do like in some of my other books, read the book, then buy a separate journal or a separate workbook to
Mhm.
continue the process. I wanted them to be able to do it within the same space. So you can read it through, but I want them to go back and answer those questions for themselves so that they can see it and go through the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Read it first and then go back and do the exercises. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit more about how this journey started. It was with the ending of a marriage. And that intrigues me because you clearly took something that could have been an event that changed the trajectory of your life in a negative way, right?
Right.
Instead, you used it to recharge and redefine yourself as a woman of intention. And so
Yeah.
let's talk just a little bit about that had to have been a shift, because I think when we go through a divorce, it is a dark period, it is a negative period, and there
Mhm.
has to be great intention when you shift that to something positive.
Right. That process of deciding to leave that marriage was a huge step for me. It was the first time in my own life where I had chosen myself. Up until that point, I allowed people to determine if they were going to choose me or not, when they were done with me in their lives, if they had any value of me in their lives. In that moment, God showed me I could choose me. I did learn that I chose my marriage for many different reasons, but I did get married at the point of my self-esteem. And by saying yes to myself and yes to God in that process, it allowed the gift that he had given me already as a scribe to really come forth. I had used it in different ways, but I had no idea that he would use that to help me to heal myself.
Wow, that's beautiful. And you mentioned in the book, among other methods of healing, you sought counseling. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about that as a Christian, living in faith. Was that sort of a difficult decision to make for yourself? Was it easy? And what are some of the gifts that you got through counseling that you may not have gotten without it?
I believe that counseling saved my life. I
Mm.
believe that because of all the emotions that I was going through, making that decision to leave my marriage, I didn't understand it. There was rage, there was anger, there was self love, there was strength, just a lot of conflict because I had never experienced that sense of strength for myself. And I went to the doctor to try and understand what was I feeling, why was I feeling like this or feeling like that. And I believe that it was God that showed me I was having symptoms of depression. And at that time, I didn't want to get on medication. I wanted to do something different. So I sought out a counselor. And I didn't realize just how much I was carrying all those years. Yes, prayer does help, but I believe that counseling is an action step for us as well. You have people in place to help us to be able to deal with the matters of the heart. We've gone through some stuff. I couldn't get through that just simply praying every day and not doing something physically to be able to help myself. So it wasn't a hard decision. And I stayed in counseling for many years, not focusing on the marriage, not focusing on the kids, but focusing on Lynette. What has Lynette gone through? And through that, I learned I didn't give myself permission to own that I had gone through a lot of trauma in my life. I felt like if I gave myself that permission, then my mind couldn't take it. I felt like it would overtake me. But through the process of counseling, exercising, praying, and mixture of all of it, sometimes in the same day, it helped me to be able to get through that process. Now, is it easy? No. Depression shows up in so many different ways, and divorce is a death. So it was grief, it was sadness, it was overwhelm, it was rage, it was how could I, it was, why did you do that for yourself? Why did you just let people treat all of that? And when sometimes people tell you as Christians, we just need to trust God and He'll take care of it, He does. But we also need counseling. And in many families, we're told that when you see counseling, then you're crazy. Well, yeah, I'm crazy because I'm going to get some help. And that's what I did.
Well, your statement, counseling was an action step, is
Mm-hmm.
is fabulous. We do sometimes misinterpret as Christians, well, all I need to do is read the Bible and stay in prayer. He's going to help me. He's going to answer. He's going to direct me, whatever it may be. But we also have to get involved. It's not passive, as you said, it's active. So I think that that's
Yes.
great. So how does
Yes.
someone cross the bridge into really believing that they are capable of transformation? I mean, we may latch onto that a little bit, and embrace that for a week or two, but I'm talking about the true that you have gone through, the true transformation of a life. For that to be successful for you, you had to believe it. And so, how did you cross that bridge into believing you could really transform?
Consistency. As I said earlier, when God would show me something about myself or my situation or help me understand, I believe that all the praying and the counseling, they're steps. They're steps, they're building blocks. And as we become aware of this thing and choose to work on it and get the confidence that it builds as we go through it, heal it, release it, confess it, then each time it gives us courage to be able to take the next step. Many times we're taking a step and we can't see the full staircase. We can only see the next step in front of us, but we don't want to take the next step because we don't know what's behind that step. But when we take the step, do the work on that step, release what we need to release, love on ourselves through the process, forgive ourselves through the process, open ourselves up to new ideas about that process, about what we've gone through, and begin to see ourselves through the scriptures, through praying, through consistency, through taking another step, it builds upon itself. And before you know it, you're in this place and you're asking, how did I get here? It's by taking each step. Each step has action steps. Each step has a process. Each step has something for you to do as the person in the process. It can't be about what happened to you and who did it. It's about, how do I become now? How do I deal with this now? And yes, it'll hurt. Healing hurts because you dig up things. But each time you go through that process, that cycle, then you can begin to see yourself different. You can have more confidence. You can do things you didn't think you could do. You can believe in yourself, because if you're strong enough to take this step and you're strong enough not to turn back, that builds confidence and it grows upon itself. And here you are in this moment doing things you didn't think you could do, or saying things you didn't think you could say, or smiling more than you ever have, because you went through the process. You were willing to do it for you. You've been in the pain long enough. You have to determine, enough is enough. I've been in this place long enough. I want better. I want to feel better. I want to look better to me. I want to do different things. I want to meet different people. It's only going to happen when you go through those processes for yourself.
So it's okay if you have enough faith to just take one step.
Yes.
You don't have to see that you have the faith for the whole transformation. Just take that next step and then let that build to the next step.
To the next step.
That's so encouraging. So encouraging.
Yes.
In chapter 4, you made another profound statement that really struck me and has stuck with me. You said, you don't have to remain the same for your whole life because of one moment, one experience, or one bad decision. And that is amazing to me, because not everyone gets stuck in that, but we're all hard on ourselves, and we all sort of tend to think that we're not living truthfully because we know we're not perfect inside. And so we think back on this big mistake that we made, and we think that that defines us, and everybody's going to think about that mistake in our life forever, but they're not. They're thinking about their own lives.
Right.
I love that statement. And I think that's another thing that you could speak to for a minute is, how do you start to, if you are someone who's stuck in that place where you believe that a bad decision defines your life, how do you begin to redefine?
Well, for me, redefining came with owning my decision. Regardless of what happened to me, how it affected my life, I have to own what I did in the face of that. What choices did I make? What did I say to myself because this happened? How am I letting that affect me now? And going through all the things that we talked about a few minutes ago, it helps me to understand I wasn't meant to be perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes. I did something that now I feel shame. But why did I do that? I did that because I didn't feel like I was worthy of anything. But God is now showing me I am worthy. He does love me. He took all of this in him. And if he can do that for me, then I can forgive myself. Yes, I made the mistake, but now I'm going to stand on that instead of allowing it to just be so heavy on me. And it's just like a new breath of life when you can see that, yes, I did that, but that's not who I am anymore. And I don't have to live according to that anymore. It's self-permission all the time. People will try and hold it over your head sometimes, but you have to determine, I'm not there anymore. I'm not that person anymore. I don't have to prove to anyone that I'm not that person anymore. You just have to let yourself believe it for yourself.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the access point of the whole book. It's so profound. And I know we're getting to the end here, but I was hoping maybe you could speak for a minute to the woman who is really touched by your story and is inspired by your story, but she's in a marriage that is perhaps confining, perhaps keeping her from being all she could be, and maybe at no fault up to the partner, and it may have to do with the partner. But how would she go about staying in the marriage and becoming a new version of herself while maintaining a marriage, which is no small thing?
Right. The first thing I would say is to seek a counselor, because your spouse may not understand what you're going through. By seeking a counselor, you can be able to talk about those things and see, maybe this marriage is not for you anymore, but if it is, what do you need to work on in yourself so that you can make a good decision for you of whether you stay or whether you go. We don't stay the same person all our lives, and what worked for us at one stage of life may not work for us anymore. But if you know that this marriage is good for you and that this is where you want to be, you have to first start with yourself. Start journaling out your feelings. No one is going to read your journal, so you can be totally honest, brutally honest with yourself about everything you're feeling, everything you're seeing. How do you feel about yourself? Start writing those things out. And when you go through counseling, if that's what you wanting to do, they can help you to work through those processes. And many people build great marriages after they focus on themselves and get the help that they need, and instead of looking for their partners to rescue them, to save them. Your partner is meant to be a support to you. They're not meant to be the one who comes in and rescues you and keep you from doing the work for yourself. So it starts with yourself. It starts with you building yourself up, building your self-esteem up, building your confidence up, dealing with the things you've been running away from all these years, those things that you've been mute about, that you need to speak about, even if it's in your journal and to a counselor. Then ask yourself, how much do you really want to be a better version of yourself for you, not for your kids, not for your husband, your partner, but for you? How much do you really want that? And what are you willing to do to have that? And then put those things into action through journaling, through prayer, through support groups, through counseling. You do what you have to do because you're at a critical point, but it all starts with you. Nobody else can do it for you.
Wow, thank you for that, Lynette. That's great. So your book, Compare Me Not, is still in pre-sale, I believe.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
what is what's the best way someone can get in touch with you? What's the best way that someone can order the book in pre-sale?
The book is available on pre-sale on my website at restoreherworth.com, and I'll also add a link when we're done here. I'll add the link here so they can quickly just click on it. And the pre-sales end tomorrow. You'll receive one chapter complimentary from the book, and then you can join us next Thursday on the 22nd when we release the ebook for purchase. And you'll be able to go ahead and order it.
And when are you going to be doing that next week? Are you going to do that on Facebook, or what's your method?
Yes, we'll be going live on Facebook, on my business and my personal profile, as well as YouTube. For the ebook release, I'll be speaking with the person who wrote the foreword for the book, and going over her journey, of dealing with her triggers of comparison.
Perfect. So restoreherworth.com is your site, and that's how people can get linked to your book and your other books, because you are a prolific writer. And in our last couple of minutes here, tell me what keeps you jazzed up to keep writing books.
Because I know that that's my gift. That's something that I take very personal for myself. I feel like that's God's personal thing that he gave me. I know how writing helps me to heal and how freeing it is for me. And to know that when I look in my daughter's eyes, that I'm writing this book for her, for girls like her, for women like myself. And I want to see the transformation in their lives through what God gives me to pen for myself and for other people.
Beautiful. But the next book up is a fiction book.
Yes.
So,
That's something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. I have the vision for it. I feel like it's something that can help me expand my creativity a little further and in a different direction, but still be able to speak to women in a way that they can relate to.
well, we're all going to look forward to that. Have you started writing it?
I've started writing the characters, but I haven't started the story. I have the vision for it. I feel like this is something that I have to even learn all over again. Being a nonfiction writer is one thing, but writing fiction is totally different. I don't want to just throw something out there. I want to really learn how to do it and develop my characters.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to look forward to seeing that, and can't wait to read that one. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lynette, so much for your time today. I'm excited for this book to come out. It is going to change lives, and I thank you for following your faith and publishing this book.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast. And if you're following or watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, like our videos. We look forward to bringing you more in the future. And I hope everybody enjoys this day and keep writing. Take care.